ॐ गणानां त्वा गणपतिं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पतान् शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनं श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। Om. Dear friends, we were reading this 23rd shloka of 10th adhyaya in the last class, that is Rudranam Shankaraschasmi Vittesho Yaksha Rakshasam Vasunam Pavakaschasmi Meru Shikharinamaham. We read that shloka and then I was just broadly explaining that shloka. We are now in the context of seeing the vibhutis, various manifestations, the powerful, excellent, valorous manifestations of, the Supreme Brahman. So these manifestations, these are all, Arjuna has asked for all these things, basically not for himself alone. That is, these are all the symbols which are so popular in all our Puranas. All these symbols which we are seeing, all these Vasus and then all these Purodhasamja Mukhyamam, Bruhaspati and all these symbols which we have seen and which we are going to see. All these things, they have been symbols which we find in our Puranas. And all these things have been at some way, in some way or the other, they have been worshipped, or people have done some upasana on them. So these are all objects for this dhyanam or upasana. So that was the idea of Arjuna. So this Saguna Brahma, or for the upasana, these are not exactly Saguna Brahma, these are all upasya things, basically for upasana, so that they are this is a sort of alambana by which you move on to a higher stage. So this is the general context. And then in this shloka we have seen, among the Rudras, I am Shankara. Rudra explained, Rudi, Rujam Dravayati iti Rudraha, that is one who dispels your sorrow. So he is Rudra. Then among all those, there are supposed to be Ekadasha Rudras, that is 11 Rudras, that is a group deities. I told that shloka from Amarakosha, where there are group gods which are mentioned in that particular shloka. Rudra is a group of gods. In that group, this Shankara is my manifestation. Then Vitteshaha Yaksha Rakshasam, Yakshanam Rakshasam Madhye, that is, among the Yakshas and also the Rakshasas, there again some demigod type of people. So among them, I am the Vittesha. Vittesha means that Lord Kubera. Kubera is the god of wealth. And Kubera is also said to be the brother of Ravana, who is the antagonist in Ramayana. Ramayana, we know this Ravana is there who abducts Sita and takes her away. So this Kubera is the brother of that, Ravana. And Ravana snatches this man's empire, that is Sri Lanka. Ravana snatches and then drives him away. And then Ravana himself dwells there. But in spite of it, this Kubera is the symbol of wealth, and then he is a man who is a very, very prosperous, among the person among the gods. So he is the Vitteshaha. Then Vasunam Pavakaschasmi. Among the Vasus, I am the Agni. Vasus, there are 8 people in that group. In those 8, among those 8 people, did I tell the story of Bhishma also? These Vasus, at some point of time, they seem to have offended the sage Vasishtha. Vasishtha has one Kamadhenu, and then this youngest of the Vasus, he forcibly takes away the Kamadhenu. Then Vasishtha gets angry and then he punishes them. Okay, you go and take birth as humans. So these people, they fall on his feet and they request him. Then he may say, he becomes cool, and then he says, okay, you will take birth, and as soon as you take birth, your Papa will be gone and then you will come back. But one person who actually abducted the cow, he will stay for a longer time and then again he will also come back. So that person who abducted the cow, he was born as Bhishma, and then who stayed for a long time. Because he is one of the Vasus, Bhishma is a representative of Dharma. Bhishma is a representative of Dharma. If you see the Mahabharata, he is the person who is also a wise man, who is a Jnani. and then who constantly say, of course, he is representing Dharma, but unfortunately he is on the side of this Duryodhana. Okay, let us not get into that. But then Bhishma is one of the Vasus. So among those Vasus, this Pavaka, fire god also is there among those Vasus. So that Vasu, I am that Vasu. Vasunam Pavakasyasmi, Meruhu Shikharinamaham. This Meru, did I explain? Meru is that mountain Meru, which is supposed to be slightly beyond what is this, the present, the Mount Everest. And then probably it is in China. I did not check up. We can check it up also. Mount Meru, if you even the Google, it may be there. That Mount Meru is supposed to be the place where Lord Shiva is dwelling. And then Kailasa, of course, Kailasa is there, that Mount Meru also. That Mount Meru is supposed to be a golden mountain. So that is supposed to be a golden mountain. And Meru also symbolizes this Meru Danda. In the human body, this vertebral column is called the Meru Danda. That Meru Danda has that Sushumna Nadi, which symbolizes Kundalini. Kundalini is supposed to be that Shakti, which we are supposed to invigorate, we are supposed to wake it up if we have to attain, say, higher levels of that yogic experience. So that Kundalini is also symbolized by this Meru. So Meruhu Shikharina Maham. Shikhari is that which is having a peak. Shikharam is a peak. Shikhari means that mountain which is having peaks. It is called a Shikhari. So among the mountains which is having all those peaks, I am that Mount Meru, which is having some very grand peaks and all that. So that is what we saw. I think we have to read the Bhashyam. Bhashyam also is not much. It is only one line. Rudranam Ekadashanam Shankarascha Asmi. I am Shankara among the 11 Rudras. Rudranam Ekadashanam, among the 11 Rudras, I am Shankara. Then Vitteshaha Kuberaha Yaksha Rakshasam Yakshanam Rakshasamcha. So Yakshanam Rakshasamcha Madhye Aham Kuberaha. That Kubera is the god of wealth. Then Vasunam Ashtanam Pavakascha Asmi Agnihi. The meaning of Pavaka is one who purifies. The root dhatu Pava means to purify. Purify and Pava seem to be cognate words also. So among those 8 Vasus, I am this Pavaka, who is the purifier, who is the Agni. Then Meruhu Shikharinam Shikharavatam Aham. So Shikharavatam means those which are having peaks. Shikharavan is one who is having a peak. Shikharavatam is Shashti Bahuvachanam. Among those mountains which are having these peaks, I am this Mount Meru. Then let us read the next shloka. Purodhasam cha mukhyam mam Viddhi partha bruhaspatim Senanina skandaha Sarasamasmi sagaraha. So here again there are 2-3 stories here. One is the story of Bruhaspati, one is the Skanda, and one is the Sagara. Bruhaspati is he is the advisor for the gods. Devendra is there. We know the Puranic structure, not the Vedantic structure. We should not confuse with the Vedanta. Here we are totally in the realm of Purana. We should not confuse with Vedanta. So in the realm, in these Puranas, we have got a god. We have got one, for all those people whom we call gods, there is one chap called who is an Indra. And then that Indra is advised by this Bruhaspati. This Bruhaspati is called the Deva Guru also. Not only advisor, he is the Guru. He is the master for all of them. So this Bruhaspati, he rescues Indra and all these Devas on several occasions. Bruhaspati is said to be having one vidya, one particular art, Mruta Sanjeevani. You must have heard about it. Mruta Sanjeevani is those who are killed, now again brings them back to life. So that is how Devas, all these gods, they were constantly winning over the demons. So there is again a story where one demon, one fellow among the demons, one boy, he comes in disguise, comes and then he learns that vidya from Bruhaspati. There is a very big story about that. We will not go into that. So this Brihaspati is one, they say, the advisor or the guru of these gods, who helps or who rescues the gods on several occasions. So he is the counselor of Indra, and then he is supposed to be the Purodha. Purodha is Puraha Hitaha, Puraha Sthapitaha. We know the word Purohit nowadays. We know the word Purohita. What is Purohita? Purohita means Puraha is Agre, Hitaha is Sthapitaha. Puraha dha dhatu. That is the Hita comes from the word dha. There is a Panini Sutra called Dadhater Hihi. So that according to that sutra, that dha becomes a Hita. Purohitaha means one who is placed in front. So Purodhaha is also the same meaning. Of course, there is another meaning also which is popularly told. Purohitaha means one who tells hitam, one who tells what is say good to us, what is to be followed by us. So that meaning also is there, but grammatically Purohitaha means Puraha agre sthapitaha. So that is, this Purohita is a person who is kept in front for all types of things. That is, whether it is a war, if suppose some army is going for a war, it is not the chieftain who is there in front, it is the Purohita who is in front. Because it is the Purohita who has to do some pujas, and then who has to propitiate some gods, and then he has to see that all these people are, say, put in proper fighting fit shape. That is infusing some sense of morale in modern terms, if we want to say, putting a sense of morale in them. So after all, words count a lot, isn't it? A person who is there and then who does some worship and then says, okay, you now go and you conquer all those demons and whatnot. So he fills them with a great high morale. So probably that was the job. And for the gods, there is another say person also, Agni. Agni also, he is one of those Purohitas. But this Brihaspati is said to be the highest Purohita. So that is why it is said here, Purodhasam cha mukhyam mam vidhi. Purodhasam mukhyam. So among those Purohits, I am the chief among the mukhyam, or most important. Mam vidhi. Please, that means you know me as, He Partha, Brihaspatim vidhi. You know that I am the Brihaspati, because I am that excellent manifestation called Brihaspati among the among the Purohits, among all these Purohits. There are several stories about this Purohit, this person, because, for example, once one person, this Indra commits a mistake. So we lift it up. At one time, Indra commits a mistake, and then for committing that mistake, he goes and hides somewhere. At that time, temporarily somebody else, a good king called Nahusha, he is being who is brought and kept as Indra temporarily. And that Indra, that Nahusha, who sits in that particular throne, he suddenly gets angry and then gets very, very powerful, and then he becomes very, very proud, and then he wants to have all the wives of this Indra. So on such occasions, again then this Brihaspati intervenes, and then Brihaspati goes and then gets back the original Indra. And then this particular Indra who becomes proud and then who commits all atrocities, the fellow is again sent back. So this type of stories are there in various Puranas. So all these Puranas, they have to be taken as lessons in morality. Basically, we have to take them as moral lessons, not as anything more. In some places, of course, there is symbolism. In some cases, they are purely moral lessons. So this Brihaspati is like that. Then Senani Namaham Skandaha. Skanda is Kumaraswamy. Skanda is the son of Parvati and Shiva. Shiva and Parvati, I think in the last class I told the story of Shiva and Parvati. Yeah, Shiva and Parvati, I told the story of how they come together and then how they get married. And marriage should be a sacred relationship. It is not for lust that these people, human beings are supposed to marry. So that is that story I think I told you. And the point in that particular story is that Shiva, the son who is born to Shiva and Parvati alone will be able to conquer one demon called Tarakasura. Tarakasura again is all this Maya. Taraka actually means Maya only. So Tarakasura can be conquered by the sacred combination of this Chit Shakti and say the other Chit and Shakti, not Chit Shakti, Chit and Shakti. Chit represented by Shiva. Chit means pure consciousness or Brahman as you call it. Brahman or consciousness or Chaitanyam or Sat Chit Ananda is represented by Shiva. And then this Shakti is represented by Parvati. So a good combination of these two people only will be able to vanquish all this Ajnana. This Ajnana will be vanquished by this thing only. So that is the symbolic meaning in that whole story. There will be a broad symbolic symbolism in that whole structure of a Purana. In between there will be some small stories which should be taken as moral lessons. Like I told about this Indra, this Brihaspati story, etc. In the broad structure, there will be some small episodes. So like that. So this Kanda is the son of say Shiva and Parvati, and he is supposed to be the Senani. Senani is, that is, he is the chieftain. He is the chieftain for the gods' armies. Then, is there any other story? Yeah. Then there is another thing called Sarasam Asmi Sagaraha. Sarasam, Saras is a natural say formation, something like a say sea or ocean. There are some small seas are there, some Black Sea, Mediterranean Sea, and some such seas are there. In addition to that, apart from that, we have got the ocean also. So among all these natural formations called Sagaras, all these things, I am that Sagara. Sagara means the big mighty ocean. So there are some small seas, some Caspian Sea is there, Mediterranean Sea is there, and small things are there. The difference here is Saras is Devakhata Jalashayanam Madhye. That is what Madhusudana writes. Devakhata. That is, it is dug by the gods. Devakhata means literally it means dug by the gods. It is not as though gods have come and dug it. These are all natural formations. So that is how we have to take it. People also can dig some say tanks, and then we can make water reservoirs. It is not a man-made reservoir but a natural reservoir. This natural reservoir is called Saras. So all these among all these natural reservoirs, I am that Sagara. And for that Sagara again there is a big story. There is a big story in Puranas, and also it is also repeated by Kalidasa in Raghuvamsha. Raghuvamsha, in that solar line, Raghuvamsha talks about the kings of that solar race. And among those kings there is one person called Asamanjasa. So he is a person who deviates from dharma. He punishes, he tortures all these sages, tortures all good people. So he is a fellow who has fallen from dharma, that Asamanjasa. So that Asamanjasa goes to hell. Then again his son Sagara, Asamanjasa, after the fellow was burnt to ashes by because of the curse of some sage, if that man has to go to heaven, his son has to see that his say ashes are washed by this Ganges. So this Sagara, he does very big tapas, and then he will not be able to get Ganges from say heaven to earth. Then again Sagara's sons are there. Sagara's sons, they go and dig up the whole say ocean to find the ashes there, because this fellow's ashes are there somewhere there. So there is a big story like that. Again, we need not go into that story, because this story again there will be some small variations in different Puranas. One Purana gives a small one version, and another Purana gives a slightly different version. So broadly this is the picture. So these people, they go and dig up this whole ocean. So this thing is called Sagara. Right from that time, this ocean is very much there even earlier. And then they dig into that in order to find that there is Ashwamedha, Ashwa, and also all the ashes they want to find. So for that reason, it is called Sagara. So among all those, say all these lakes, natural lakes or ocean, lakes or seas, I am that Sagara. So that is the meaning here. Purodhasamcha mukhyam mam vidhi. Vidhi means you know, hey Partha. Then let us see this. Purodhasam Raja Purohitanam Mukhyam Pradhanam Mam Vidhi
मां विद्धि
जानीहि
जानीहि
हे पार्थ बृहस्पतिम.
हे पार्थ बृहस्पतिम.
So among all those Raja Purohitas, all these kings used to have Purohitas. Not only kings, even we do have Purohitas now. That is, Purohita, of course, we have no dedicated Purohit. Whenever there is a need, we go and request somebody to come. But then bigger people, they have a dedicated Purohita. If he is a king, naturally he will have some dedicated Purohitas around him at all the time who give him different types of advice and all that. So among all those people, I am that the chief most important person called Bruhaspati. Bruhaspati is also known for his wisdom. Basically, Bruhaspati, any wise man, we normally call him Bruhaspati. Oh, he is like Bruhaspati. He is a person very, very well versed in all things. Is a very wise person. So Bruhaspati. Sahi Indrasya iti
Sahi Indrasya iti
Mukhyasyat Purodhaha.
Mukhyasyat Purodhaha.
So he is of that Indra. Sahi Indrasya iti. He is the Purodha or he is the Purohit of that Indra. So for that reason, Syat, Mukhyaha Syat Purodhaha. So he is the chief of those all these Purohits. Then Senaninam Senapatinam Aham Skandaha Deva Senapatihi. So among these Senapatis, I am that Skanda. So then Sarasam Yani Devakhatani Saramsi Tesham Sarasam Sagaraha Asmi Bhavami. So among all those say Devakhatani. Devakhatani, as I said, it means dug by the Devas. So Devakhata is natural formation. All these Devakhatani Saramsi. Among all these lakes or small seas, among all types of seas, I am the Sagara. Sagaraha Bhavami. Then let us read the next shloka. Maharshinam Bhruguraham Giramasmyekamaksharam Yajnanam Japayajñosmi Stavaranam Himalayah. Okay, Maharshi, here again there are 4 stories. Of course, for Omkara there is no story. Maharshinam Bhruguraham. I am the Maharshi Bhrugu among all these rishis. Then Giram Asmi Ekam Aksharam. Giram Asmi Ekam Aksharam. You have to split it as Giram Asmi Ekam Aksharam. Giram, among all the words, Ekam Aksharam Asmi. So that is how it has to be connected. Giram, among all the words or symbols or sounds. Giram, Gi actually means Gir, Vag, Vani, Saraswati, Vak, any type of symbol or sound. Sound symbol, not pictorial symbol. So among all those words, I am that Ekam Aksharam, that one Aksharam called Omkara, I am that. Then Maharshi, then Yajnanam Japa Yajñosmi. Among various types of yajnas, I am Japa Yajna. Then Sthavaranam Himalaya. Among all these mountains, I am that Himalaya. So there are actually 2 stories only. The story of Bhrugu and story of Himalaya. For Japa Yajna, there is no story. For Omkara, there is no story. So let us see who this Bhrugu is. This Bhrugu is supposed to be one of the Saptarshis and very powerful man. There are several stories about this Bhrugu. If you see that, go to that book, if you see that Puranic encyclopedia or anything, there are several stories of this Bhrugu, but I will tell a couple of stories only. This Bhrugu is said to be so wise that he is employed to test who among the 3 gods, that is Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshwara. We consider these Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara as 3 important cosmic personalities. So these 3 cosmic functions or personalities, at the Purana level, let us say personality. In Vedanta, we call them cosmic functions. In Purana, we call them personalities. So in among those 3 people, who is the greatest? So greatest means he has to be judged by his good qualities. So somebody has to go and test who is the greatest. And naturally, when you send for inspection, you will send a very tough man. So that is why this Bhrigu, being a very tough, very tough Maharshi, he was sent for inspection. So this man goes to this Brahma. When this Brahma and say Saraswati, they are very happily sitting somewhere, very happily, I mean, in a relaxed manner. So this man intrudes. So Brahma gets angry, he gets annoyed. He gets annoyed and then says, no, what is this? Why did you come without my permission? So then, okay, he curses Brahma and then he says, no, you are a very arrogant fellow. Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, we know this, they also represent the Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas. Brahma has that power of creation. Power of creation means Rajoguna. Rajoguna symbolizes creation. Then Vishnu represents the Sattva guna. This basically providing all this the sustenance, sthiti and whatnot. So this he represents Sattva guna. Then Shiva again represents this Samoguna, where he is supposed to all this, he is the person responsible for all this dissolution of this whole say Srushti. So that is why broadly all three are important. It is not as though Sattva is important or Rajas is not important or Tamas is not. All three are important for this cycle. So each thing is a function only. So but then for the sake of Purana there is a story. So in that, so okay, from Brahma he goes to Vishnu. So Vishnu also, he is also happily sitting with his consort Lakshmi. But then seeing this chap from a distance, this he knows Vishnu is a wiser man. So he comes out immediately and then he comes out and then he does namaskara. Then this man shows, still he wants to be very tough. Even though the other man is humble, the officer coming for inspection will try to be tough. So like that, this fellow, this Bhrigu, what he does is, he kicks Vishnu on the chest. He kicks Vishnu on the chest and then say he is, but still Vishnu keeps quiet. Still Vishnu keeps quiet and then, oh my dear Maharshi, you have kicked me on the chest, you see. Your leg must be hurting, your feet must be hurting. Let me do some pada samvahanam, that is, let me just press your feet. So, okay, that man cools down and then he sits and then slowly Vishnu starts pressing his feet. So, the peculiarity of this Bhrigu is, there is a leg, there is an eye in that leg, in that in the pada. What you call, this is called, we call it palm. For the feet, for the foot, what we call, what do we call? Under the heel, let us say, under the heel there is an eye. So that symbolizes his arrogance. Arrogance, and you see, if you are, when you are looking at a man, suppose you are looking down, so it shows that you are feeling rather inferior, isn't it? You don't look into a man's face. That shows a sense of rather humility or sometimes inferiority, whatever it is. Suppose you are straight away looking into the other man and then you are speaking, you are in a normal terms. Or suppose you hold your head high and then look down on a man. So that is just looking down on a person, isn't it? Looking down, there is a word called supercilious behavior. In English we call it supercilious behavior. So that is the eyelids are so high. So that is the meaning of supercilious. Then if that is the case, you imagine a person who is having an eye in his sole of the feet. So which means he shows the sole of his feet. When he sees somebody, so he sees it with his foot and not with his eyes. So which means that is the type of darpa, say that type of pride that man has. Anyway, Vishnu keeps pressing it and slowly he presses that particular eye. He totally presses it and then makes it defunct, let us say. So that eye is gone. So then this man's krodha is gone. Then this Maharshi wakes up. And then he becomes a normal person. He becomes normal in the sense all his arrogance is gone. All that arrogance goes away. And then he bows to Vishnu and then goes away. So before coming to Vishnu, again he has gone to Shiva also. First he goes to Brahma. Then again he goes to Shiva. Shiva also is in a very romantic mood with his wife Parvati. There again Shiva objects to his sudden arrival. So then again he does some little bit of curse to Shiva also and then comes here. So here this arrogance is gone. So then Bhrigu decides, oh, Vishnu is the greatest among these three people. So that is for the sake of that particular Purana, it holds. So that is one story saying that he is the person who is competent even to test this Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. And then there is another Puranic story according to which Lakshmi, goddess who is the wife of Vishnu, she gets separated for some reason and then she takes a human birth. And then when she has to take that human birth, she is born as the daughter of this sage Bhrigu. So that is why she is called Bhargavi. You know the word Bhargavi. Bhargavi is the daughter of this Bhrigu. So this Bhargavi, again after being born as the daughter of this Bhrigu, she again gets married to Vishnu and then goes back to her abode. So that these are some of the two stories of Bhrigu. There are several other stories of this Bhrigu. We need not go into that. So he is said to be a very, very powerful, say, manifestation or powerful person among all these rishis. So that is why I am that Bhrigu. Then Giramasmi Ekam Aksharam. Ekam Aksharam. Where is this? Ekam Aksharam, that is one Aksharam. Aksharam means non-perishing. Ksharam is perishing, Aksharam is non-perishing. Of course, for every Akshara we don't say non-perishing and all that, but although all the alphabet, all the letters in that alphabet, we call them Aksharas. That is, all these things are non-perishing. Of course, there is a philosophy behind it. If we want to see that, if we want to know that philosophy, there is what is called Patanjali's Mahabhashya and whatnot. We have to go into that Patanjali Bhashya, which I myself have not read. Anyway, Patanjali Mahabhashya will tell about the philosophy of language. Patanjali Mahabhashya, and also there is another book called Vakyapadiyam. Vakyapadiyam by Bhartruhari. You must have heard the name of Bhartruhari. Bhartruhari, who was a king, who later became say a recluse, a sannyasi, a king. He did his normal kingdom and he was ruling, and he was supposed to be a very, very judicious, very wise king and a very learned man also. He wrote this Subhashita Trishati. In addition to this Subhashita Trishati, he was a very learned man. Who wrote a very authoritative book on grammar. That book is called Vakyapadiyam. Vakyapadiyam, the philosophy of language actually, not grammar, the philosophy of language. So if you go into that, you will see why it is called Aksharam, the philosophy behind it. So that we will see. But here, Giram Aham Ekam Aksharam Asmi. Among all those things, I am the word Om. Omkara, we had a very detailed discussion in Gita Bhashyam earlier. That is, Omkara represents the Parabrahma, also represents the Apara Brahma. Para means supreme. Apara is that functional level, that empirical level, that Saguna Brahma. This Omkara, on the other hand, Nirguna Brahma and Saguna Brahma, both it represents. And this is the tool, this is the sadhana. And Omkara, meditation about this Omkara, etc. we have seen, we have discussed in detail earlier. Then, Yajnanam Japa Yajñosmi. Yajna. There are yajnas all about this yajnas. We had a detailed discussion in 4th chapter, isn't it? 4th chapter of the same Gita. There is one shloka there. Dravya yajnas, tapo yajnaha, jnana yajna, not jnana yajna, dravya yajnas, tapo yajnaha, yoga yajnaha, tatha pare, swadhyaya jnana yajnascha, yataya samshita vrataha. So that is how the shloka is there. So there are 4 types of yajnas which are told. Dravya yajnaha. So all those yajnas which are performed by securing so many, so much of material, all this, say various sambhara as we call it, all those materials we secure and then we perform a yajna. That is dravya yajna, by spending a lot of money. That is what of course our people do nowadays. So people, they mobilize money and then they do some yajna. Then tapo yajna. Tapo yajna is that Kruchra Chandrayana, that type of thing I explained at that time. That is where one undergoes a lot of penance. One undergoes a penance in order to purify himself, in order to ensure that his mind is brought under control and fit enough to study the scriptures, etc. So Kruchra Chandra. Kruchra means very tough, physically tough. Kruchram is physically tough. Kruchra Chandrayanadi Vratam, it is called Chandrayanam. So that is Tapo Yajnaha. Then Yoga Yajnas Tathapare. Yoga, different aspects of yoga also. Yoga is that Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali. Yoga system is common to all schools of Indian philosophy. So this yoga, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, etc., etc., all those things are called Yoga Yajnaha. Then Swadhyaya Dhyana Yajnascha. Yatayaha Samshita Vrata. Jnana Yajnascha. Yatayaha Samshita Vrataha. That was the shloka in that 4th Adhyaya. Swadhyaya is study of your own branch of Veda. If you are a Yajurvedi, you have to study Yajurveda. So like that is Swadhyaya. Not that you should not study other things. This is compulsory, whereas all other things are optional. One particular branch of Veda you are supposed to jolly well know. So that is the meaning of, that was the tradition till about maybe about 50 years ago or 100 years ago. That was the tradition. Maybe 100 years ago, till about 100 years ago. Of course, within the last 100 years, a lot of social change has taken place, and then we have come away from so many things. So that apart, okay, this Swadhyaya Yajna is that. Swadhyaya Jnana Yajnascha. And Swadhyaya has to lead to Jnana. Not merely learning that Veda by rote, it has to lead to Jnana. So Swadhyaya and Jnana are linked. So this, among those Yajnas, Yajnanam Japa Yajñosmi. Japa. Japa, where does it come? Japa, it doesn't come under Dravya Yajna. It doesn't come under Tapo Yajna. It doesn't come under what is this Yoga Yajna. Yoga Yajna, of course, it is coming under say Yamani, Yamasana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, all those things it is there. Of course, there also in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, there is one sutra which says about Omkara. Tasya Vachaka Pranavaha, it says. That is the symbol which represents the God or Ishvara, as Patanjali Yoga calls. That symbol is Om. And then Tasya Vachaka Pranavaha. Tasya Vachaka Pranavaha. Then Pranava, that is Omkara, is the Vachaka. That is the symbol which represents or denotes that Ishvara. Then the very next sutra says Tajjapas Tadartha Bhavanam. This word you can note down. Tajjapaha Tadartha Bhavanam. That is one sutra from Patanjali. Tat Japaha Tadartha Bhavanam. It means, Japa means deliberating on the meaning of a mantra or a particular symbol. Deliberating or dwelling on the meaning. Tat Japaha Tadartha Bhavanam. Artha Bhavanam means that is dwelling on the meaning of a particular symbol, dwelling on the meaning of a particular mantra. That is what is called japa. Japa we do sometimes, sometimes we do 108 times japa. What is that japa? Japa is repetition of a particular symbol, repetition of a particular mantra. Of course, that mantra will be short only. It will be just usually one line mantra. So that particular mantra we have to repeat. Say some people do 108 times, some people do 1000 times, some people do 10,000 times, depending on their time and patience. But japa, not mere recitation, blind recitation that is implied. Artha bhavanam, that you have to know the artham, you have to know the meaning of it, and then you have to do this japa. There is a slight difference between dhyanam and japa. Dhyana is, there is again a Patanjali Yoga Sutra which says, of course, we have no conflict. We also have used in the same meaning. What is that? Tatra pratyayikatagrata dhyan, pratyayikatanata dhyanam. This also you can note down. Pratyayikatanata dhyanam. Dhyanam means pratyayanam ekatanata. Pratyayikatanata. Pratyaya plus ekatanata becomes pratyayikatanata dhyanam. This is from Pratyayikatanata. This number I have not noted. Pratyayikatanata dhyanam, I think it is from Vibhuti-pada. That is the third pada. It comes in the beginning. This first thing I said is Tajjapas Tadartha Bhavanam is in the first pada only. Yoga Sutras, they are in 4 padas. That is, one is called Sadhana Pada. Next is Samadhi. Samadhi means about the description of the Samadhi, Yoga Samadhi. The next is about the sadhana, the way in which you achieve that thing. The third is a vibhuti. Vibhuti means various, the wonderful experiences which a yogi gets. So that is there in that third pada. The fourth pada is that liberation, kaivalya. That is the pada. So there are 4 padas in that Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So these sutras which I said, 2 sutras which I said, they come in. They can be found in that. So japa is knowing the meaning of a word or symbol or a mantra and then repeating in yourself. Dhyanam is slightly different. Pratyaya ekatanata. Ekatanata means one stream of pratyayas. Tulya pratyaya santatihi. What Shankaracharya said, defined as upasana. The definition given for upasana is tulya pratyaya santatihi, isn't it? So that tulya pratyaya santati is the same as pratyaya ekatanata. Ekatanata means one line, only single stream. Ekatanata is one stream. So dhyana is closer to upasana, whereas japam is recitation, dwelling on the meaning of a particular symbol. And while we do japa, there is a count also. So usually they see on these fingers. Sometimes we do on that beads, mala, garland of beads. And when there is no garland of beads, you do with your own fingers. So you know how to do with fingers? How? No, not like this. Not like this. There is a way of singing. You see this. So these two, they are not touched. This is called Meru. This again, Meru Shikharinamaham. We came across this Meru. One meaning of Meru is these two. So you see each of these fingers, of course thumb doesn't count. Thumb is only for counting like this. So thumb we don't take into account. These 4 fingers, let us say. Each finger is in 3 sections, isn't it? So each section, for this middle finger, this first section and second section they are left off. So these 2 things are called Meru, isn't it? So the count starts from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again goes back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the bhavana means the idea in the mind of that sadhaka is he is doing a pradakshina of Mount Meru. It is as though we are doing a pradakshina of this sacred Mount Meru. So in that manner, you are doing this, in this manner you are going, and then again in this manner you are coming here. So it is as though you are doing some pradakshina of Meru, you are supposed to do this, counting of this is japa. So if you were, suppose you are asked to do 10 times, you do Dasha Gayatri japa. Dasha Gayatri you have to start from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you do like this, then people will say you don't know the tradition. If you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then immediately that pujari will say you don't know the tradition. So if you want to show that you know the tradition, you have to do like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then again go back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that is doing some pradakshina or circumambulation around that Mount Meru. So that is there is for everything in our system, there is a lot of body language also. There is a lot of body language in Sandhya Vandana also. In Sandhya Vandana, when you do Keshava Isvaha, Narayana Isvaha, Madhava Isvaha, there is a lot of body language there. So that you have to see, and then there is some significance for that. It is not as though they are totally, meaningless. There is some significance for that. Anyway, here this yajnanam japa yajñosmi. So in that manner, this japa is supposed to be really important, or rather much better than all other yajnas. Then there, why is that? Then again, Madhusudana Saraswati gives a meaning. The reason for that, yajnanam madhye japa yajñah himsadi dosha shunyatvena atyanta shodhakaha aham asmi, he says. That is, in various types of yajnas there is some himsa also. Various types of yajnas, for example, dravya yajna, there is pashvalambhanam. Pashvalambhanam is sacrificing an animal. in quite many yajnas, not in all yajnas, in some yajnas there is Pashvalambanam. In some yajnas there is a lot of spending of money. In some yajnas there is a lot of physical strain. In some yajnas there again this yoga practices and whatnot, all that again is a strain. But here it is a thing which is purifying you. It is a thing which purifies because you are dwelling on the meaning of a particular mantra and then you are repeating in yourself. This is something which purifies without having to undergo all those physical strain and also all those say unnecessary himsa sometimes. So all these things. So himsa adi dosha, himsa adi. Some places himsa, in some other places various other types of strain. Dosha shunyatvena atyanta shodhakaha. That is, this is the highest purifying method. So that is why it is called yajnanam japa yajñosmi. Then Sthavaranam Himalaya. Sthavara, we know what is Sthavara. Sthavara means all those stationary. Here by stationary things we are not referring to hill, a tree or something like that. We are referring to mountains. Among all those things which are all these Sthavaras, I am that Himalaya. Himalaya, we know the story of Himalaya. Himalaya is well known. And in fact, Kalidasa has written a very beautiful poem about a beautiful description of Mount Himalayas, where Kumara Sambhavam. Kalidasa, he has written a big kavyam called Kumara Sambhavam. You must have heard about it. So that the theme again is the same. Shiva and Parvati. Shiva Parvati's son, that Kumara Swami. Kumara Sambhavam means the origin of Kumara Swami. Then that this Kumara Swami, how he is born and then how he fights Tarakasura and kills that Tarakasura. So that is the overall theme there. So the very opening shlokas, very few, the first few shlokas, about 10 to 15 shlokas, they are about Mount Himalaya. Astyuttarasyam dishi devatatma Himalayo nama nagadhirajaha. It starts like that. Purvaparau toyanidhi vagahya. Sthitah prithivya iva manadandaha. This Himalaya from say Purvaparau toyanidhi vagahya. So from east to west, he is covering that whole say Toyanidhi means that ocean. That is starting from this side. If you take in olden days, if you came up to Kandahar and all these things, Hindu Kush mountains and all that, and then on this side the whole Himalayas, which again touch almost go up to this sea. So this is totally from one end of the sea to one end is touching one portion of the sea, another end is touching another portion of the sea. So Sthitah Prithivya iva Manadanda, he says. Manadanda is a scale. So this Himalaya is pervading the whole earth as though it is a scale which is measuring the say length and breadth of this say earth. So that is how he describes. That is the opening line of say Kumara Sambhavam. So like that he goes on to describe this Himalaya in another 10-15 say shlokas. So this about Himalaya we see several lot of description and all these stories in various Puranas. For example, say Skanda Purana. Skanda Purana is one Purana about the same Senani, about the Senani Skanda only. So there again we hear. In Shiva Purana we come across. So various Puranas we hear about this. So that is the importance of this Himalaya. Let us see this Bhashyam. Maharshinam Bhruguraham Giram Vacham Padalakshananam Ekam Aksharam Omkaraha Asmi. So Shankaracharya has not given all these stories because in those days it was all general knowledge. Why in those days till recently? Till my childhood, because even when I was a child, we had so many story books which told about all these stories. All these stories, they were read, say, by people of my generation in their childhood. So now of course, now all those story books have gone, they have all vanished. So because all this thing was a matter of general knowledge, so Shankaracharya has not commented on that. So that is why we see only one line. Maharshinam Bhruguhu Aham. Among the Maharshis, I am the Bhrugu. Giram Vacham. Among all the words, Pada Lakshananam, which can be characterized as words. Pada Lakshananam means that which can be characterized as a word. Aham Ekam Aksharam Omkaraha Asmi. Aham Omkaraha Asmi. I am that Omkara, that is Ekam Aksharam, that one Akshara, one say letter called Omkara. Though A, U, Ma, those three are fused into one, Om is generally taken as Aksharam. One Aksharam only. So then Yajnanam Japayajñosmi
Yajnanam Japayajñosmi
Stavaranam Sthitimatam Himalayah.
Stavaranam Sthitimatam Himalayah.
So this we have I have explained. Stavaranam Sthitimatam. Sthiti means just stationary, just to stay. Sthitiman, Sthitimatam is plural, say Shashti Bahuvachana. So Sthitimatam, I am that Himalaya. Then next, Ashvattha Sarvavrukshanam
Ashvattha Sarvavrukshanam
Devarshinam cha Naradaha
Devarshinam cha Naradaha
Gandharvanam Chitrarathaha
Gandharvanam Chitrarathaha
Siddhanam Kapilo Munihi.
Siddhanam Kapilo Munihi.
So here again there are four stories. One is Ashvattha. Ashvattha is that tree. Then Devarshinam cha Narada. This is a story of Narada. Gandharvanam Chitrarathaha. There is one chap called Chitraratha among various Gandharvas. Then among all these Siddhas, there is Kapila Muni. Siddha again is people who are born wise. So that is the meaning of Siddha. They are born Jnanis. They are born Jnanis. So among such people, Kapilaha Munihi. So these four stories are here. We still have a lot of time, isn't it? Oh, some time. Yeah, very much. Ashvattha Sarva Vrukshanam. Vrukshanam Madhye. Among all the trees, I am this Ashvattha. Ashvattha, we know that is a huge peepal tree. We know the meaning of Ashvattha also. In Kathopanishad, we saw that meaning. What is that? Yesho Ashvattha Sanatanaha. Ashvattha. What is that Ashvattha? Na Shvaha Tishtati iti Ashvattha. Tomorrow it is not there. Tomorrow does not mean tomorrow. Tomorrow means the moment you attain Jnana. The moment you attain Jnana, it is not there. But so long as you don't attain Jnana, it is there. Na Shvaha Tishtati is Ashvattha. It is not there till tomorrow. And another way of saying is that it keeps on changing. It always changes. It is eternal. It is say world is something which is always in a flux, which is always changing. So that way you can say. But another meaning which is also told is Nashvaha Tishtati means that which totally gets it vanishes. It vanishes the moment you have this Brahmajnana. So that is the meaning of this Ashvattha. So this Ashvattha, there is that is also worshipped. You must be knowing that Ashvattha is worshipped. Ashvattha again, in fact, in villages there is a practice where there is an Ashvattha tree and then there is a neem tree. These two trees are grown together, and for some reason they are grown together. And then there are stories that say neem tree represents the male and Ashvattha represents the female and whatnot. And then we do pradakshina around that Ashvattha. Then Ashvattha, in fact, there is a shloka also. Molato Brahmarupaya, Madhyato Vishnurupine, Agrata Shivarupaya, Vruksharajaya Te Namaha. There is one pilgrim center called Vidurashvattha in Karnataka. Have you heard about it? No. Oh, there is a place, there is a pilgrim center called Vidurashvattha. So this Vidurashvattha is in a district called Tumkur, which is about 60-70 kilometers away from Bangalore. And in that area, it is there about 60-70 kilometers from Bangalore. Say that is towards north. Yeah, towards north. It is there. That Vidurashvattha, it is called Vidurashvattha because the Vidura, you know the character from Mahabharata? Dhritarashtra is one brother, Panduraju is one brother, and then along with them there was another brother who was born Vidura. Dhritarashtra, Panduraju and Vidura, they were born to sage Vyasa through three different mothers. So this Vidura is a brother. Vidura is a brother, and that Vidura he continues to be the mantri or advisor for this Dhritarashtra. He continues to be the advisor, and he always tells him very, very harshly also counsels him, because his own brother very harshly counsels him, you are doing the wrong thing. But then Dhritarashtra doesn't bother for him. So anyway, Vidura is said to have planted that tree. The story is that Vidura, that he is said to have planted the tree, so that is why it is called Vidurashwatham. It is there existing for thousands of years. That is a fact. It is existing for thousands of years, and you see a huge banyan tree there. Sorry, this Ravi tree. So anyway, that is Ashwatha Sarvavrukshanam. Then Devarshinam cha Naradaha. Among the Devarshis, we know that we have seen Devarshi and also Manushya Rishis. Among humans there are Maharshis. Among gods also there are Devarshi, Rishis who are called Devarshis. Among those Devarshis, I am that Narada. Narada again is a very important character in all these Puranas. Narada is a person who intervenes whenever somebody is in some sort of mental crisis, some sort of crisis, and then he gives them some tips how to get over that. Or if somebody is too arrogant, he goes to that gentleman and then sees that he commits some more arrogant activities, and then comes to grief, because anything going in excess, the fellow will come to grief. So if he finds some fellow who is on a wrong path, he goes, and then if gods want to destroy him, then this Narada goes, and then he may say, tempts him, okay, there is a very beautiful woman there, you go and try to get that woman. So this fellow goes and tries to get that woman, and then comes to grief. So like that. So Narada, the meaning of Narada is Naram Jnanam Dadati iti Naradaha. Naram actually means Jnanam. Naram Jnanam Dadati iti Naradaha. So there are again, if you see this, say Puranas, there are any number of stories about this Narada. Even in Mahabhagavatam, there is a story of Narada, how he gets into samsara, how Narada, there are several stories like that. Narada also he marries, and then he has some 64 sons. All these stories are there in Narada Samsara. So that is again one story is there. But otherwise he is a sage who is moving in three lokas. He is called Triloka Sanchari. Bhuloka, Dyuloka and the Pitruloka. All these three lokas he keeps on moving. So he keeps on moving, and then he rectifies people if somebody is doing something wrong. So he rectifies them. So all those things he does. So there are Narada again, he was also an object of worship, in the sense that if you see this Valmiki did upasana of this Narada. The very first shloka of Ramayana, it talks about tapasvadhyaya niratam tapasvi vagvidam varam. So that shloka is there. So where Valmiki did aradhana or worship this Narada, and then through Narada he gained that knowledge. So that is one thing. There are several other regarding this, and the result of that Valmiki's upasana is our Ramayana. Naradam Paripapracha Valmiki Munipungavam. The result of that is Valmiki Ramayana. And in Valmiki Ramayana again, it is said to be equal to the Vedas only, because the Supreme Brahman himself has taken birth as Rama. And then when the Supreme Brahman himself has taken birth among the humans as Rama, then what about the Vedas? Vedas also thought, okay, we should also take birth. So that is how Vedas also took birth in the form of Ramayana. So there is a very beautiful shloka like that. Veda Vedye Pare Pumsi Jate Dasharathatmaje. That is, when this Veda Vedya, one who can only be known by the Vedas, Veda Vedye Pare Pumsi, that supreme being who is to be known only by the Vedas, when he is Jate Dasharathatmaje, means when he is born as the son of Dasharatha, then Veda Prachetasa Dasit. This Veda appeared through the mouth of this Prachetasa, means Valmiki. Through his mouth, Sakshad Ramayanatmana, in the form of Ramayana. All the Vedas, they appeared in the form of Ramayana. So that is the traditional shloka, not merely for eulogizing Ramayana, but for telling about the importance, and then how that Ramayana is having so many things which are told in the Vedas. So in so many places, in so many mantras, certain things are told. All those things are told in several other places in Ramayana. For example, Gayatri mantra itself is there. You know that Ramayana is having 24,000 shlokas. You must be knowing it. There are 6 kandas in Ramayana. Uttarakanda, of course, is not counted. Uttarakanda, many people say that it is not written by Valmiki. There are 6 kandas. That is, 6 kandas means Balakanda, Ayodhya Kanda, Aranya, Kishkindha, then Sundarakanda and Yuddhakanda. 6 kandas. These 6 kandas, they contain 24,000 shlokas. And Gayatri mantra is having 24 words. Gayatri mantra has 24 words. Tat, Sa, Vi, Tu, Hu, the Vitu, Va, Re, Ni, Yam, Bhargo. If you count like that, 24 words are there. So, Chaturbhigam Satyakshara, we also say. So, that is 24 words. So, these 24 letters, not words, 24 letters are found in these 24,000 shlokas. How? That is, the first letter of, say, Gayatri mantra starts, the first shloka of Ramayana starts with the first, say, letter of Gayatri mantra. Ta. Tatsavituhu. Tapasvadhyayaratam. So, the first 1,000 shlokas, they start with the first letter. The second 1,000 shlokas start with Sa, Tat, Sa. The third, say, 1,000 shlokas start with Vi. Vishwamitrasya Dharmatma, something like that. The shloka goes like that. Vi. So, if it is like that, this Gayatri mantra, each letter of Gayatri mantra is put at the beginning of, say, at the end of, say, 1,000 shlokas. So, that is how it is called Samputikaranam. In olden days, these people, they used to, say, club these mantras into various kavyas. And then Mantra Ramayanam, there is a book. I have not seen this book, but my guru has quoted that book. Mantra Ramayanam is supposed to have been written by Appaya Dikshita. It must be there somewhere. I have not seen this book. My guru who gave talks on this, he has quoted this thing. So, the Mantra Ramayanam, Mantra Bhagavatam. So, that is various mantras which are embedded in this Ramayana, Bharatam, Bhagavatam, etc. They are explained in those books by Appaya Dikshita. So, anyway, that is the story of this Narada. Then Gandharvanam Chitraratha. Is the time over? Oh, the time is over. Then we will see in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.